when I told it to the magicians, there was no one who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 empty years blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. After them will arise 7 years of famine. All the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. So Joseph has interpreted the dream, and as we will learn, he interpreted it correctly. The things that he talks about will come to pass. At this point, Joseph demonstrates what might be called in Yiddish, chutzpah. Do you know this word? Chutzpah. It means audacity. You know, how audacious of Joseph to say what he is going to say next. Joseph has the audacity now to advise Pharaoh. This is Joseph, you know, who's just been in prison. He's going to talk, he's going to give advice to Pharaoh. El numero uno, right? El capitan, el presidente, the big dog, the guy who can, just like that, put Joseph back into prison. Listen to what Joseph says. Now therefore, let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. You know, before I continue on, we would do well to keep this as a word to the wise. I'm just thinking, I read this just in the last week. These are relatively prosperous times in the United States, but we as consumers have simply upped our spending, you know, and been increasing consumer debt. How much better to follow the wisdom of Joseph here and say, hey, these are good times. This would be the time to put some money aside for savings, or at the very least reduce our debt. In fact, I won't go there, but I guess I am. It seems like similar fiscal restraint would serve our own country well. For your consideration. I continue on. We're in verse 37, Genesis 41. The proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find anyone else like this, one in whom is the Spirit of God? So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Removing his signet ring from his hand, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand. He arrayed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the chariot of his second in command, and they cried out in front of him, bow the knee. Thus he set him, Joseph, over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as his wife. Thus Joseph gained authority over the land of Egypt. Who'd have thunk? Joseph, right? Sold into slavery by his brothers, thrown into prison, now second in command over all of Egypt. To say that is remarkable would be an understatement. It's amazing that God uses a kindness that Joseph did 2 years earlier. 2 years earlier, when he interpreted the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker. God used this kindness 2 years ago to bring Joseph to this place. And you might think, ooh boy, good for you, Joseph. You are a lucky man. And no doubt this is a blessing to Joseph. I mean, it sure beats prison, right? Being second in command to Pharaoh. But it's not luck. God is at work. In earlier chapters, when Joseph was brought as a slave into Potiphar's household, the narrative said, as I read at the very beginning, the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. When Joseph was put into prison on false accusation, the narrative said, but the Lord was with Joseph. And it's easy now to see how those statements have played out. And as the narrative continues, we are going to see how God uses Joseph. Joseph, who continues to keep his eyes on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Joseph, who faithfully will continue to serve his earthly master Pharaoh, just as he did his master the jailer, just as he did his master Potiphar. We're going to see how God increases the good that God brings through his servant Joseph. In the meantime, we're going to consider how God might use us for the good of someone else, just as God used Joseph for the good of others, Potiphar's household, the jailer, the prisoners, and now all of Egypt. How might God use us for good? You know, there are a lot of reasons, a lot of good reasons to read and study the Bible. Here's one. All of us can learn from experience, right? I mean, you don't have to, you can learn from the experience of other people. You don't have to have stuff, good or bad, happen to you. You can learn what happens to other people. It's like, I do not have to be in a wreck to know that it's a good idea to wear my seatbelt. Right? I don't have to experience an accident myself to learn this. I know this from the experience of other people. You know, you read in the paper, you know, oh gosh, he didn't have a seatbelt on, ejected through the windshield, and died as a result of his injuries. And then you can also read about, unfortunately, he was wearing a seatbelt and was spared a serious injury. Right? You can learn from the experience of other people. Well, we can learn from the experiences of people in the Bible. In the Bible, we learn not only of God's love for us and for all human beings, we also learn what it means to follow Jesus. We learn about people like Joseph. Go back to the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. We know from Joseph's experience not to expect life to be a bed of roses. Right? Being thrown into a pit by your brothers and thrown into slavery, that is a bad day. You know, it's not all just wonderful. You know, when you're a follower of Jesus, sometimes difficult things happen to you. We learn about people who are faithful to God and what their lives are like. We learn about people who reject God. They may prosper in the short term, but the consequences of their choices, they stretch into eternity, which makes even 89 or 100 years seem like an instant, right? Compared to all of eternity, a relative pretty small slice of time here. Now, people may prosper, the evil may prosper for a season, but it's not a good deal. It's not a good deal to reject God. We learn this, not from our own direct experience, but we learn it from the Bible. Joseph helps us to see that our actions have the potential to bring incredible future blessing. You know, when you are tempted to think, well, what difference did that make? Why should I have bothered doing that good thing? Well, remember how God can use the present in the future, even in the distant future. If you would like your life to count for something in the grand scheme of things, start by doing something. You know, complaining about the world's problems, that achieves precisely nothing. Become the doer. This is one of the potential benefits of September Serve, that I talked about earlier. It's an opportunity to do something. There's a lot of somethings on here that you can try out. It's an opportunity to do something. And God can use our faithfulness to bring about great things, including changing us. Now, you could go through this list of things and say, okay, House of Hope. Some opportunities to do food prep in their clean kitchen. So you might think to yourself, well, what difference would that make? In the grand scheme of things, going and cutting up vegetables. How is that going to make a difference? Well, I don't know. And maybe some recipient will just marvel at the fact that volunteers work to provide food for them, to do them a kindness, people that they've never met. At the very least, it will mean that a hungry person gets something nutritious to eat. I have to think of Jesus' words in Matthew 25. I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. Right? Even if you did it to the least of one of these, so you've done it to me. Sometimes we get to know the difference that our actions make. Other times, we don't. All right, now it's quiz time, sports quiz time. Baseball fans, who can tell me who this is?
Joe Torre.
Joe Torre. All right, several of you got it right. That is correct. Ding, 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 ding. Tom Green, tell them what they won. No, all right. It's not a game show. It's just a quiz. Okay, this is a story that I came across. This is a baseball great. He's a Hall of Famer. About 5 years ago, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He played the game for several years and then managed for multiple teams for the years following. One stifling June afternoon in Philadelphia, this is while he was serving as manager of the New York Yankees, Joe Torre was about to step into the air-conditioned comfort of the players' entrance of Veterans Stadium when a middle-aged man called out his name. Now, Torre is not one of those celebrities, when somebody calls his name, they'll walk by like they didn't hear that their name was called. He's not one of those guys. So he stopped, assuming that he would be asked for an autograph. But he was wrong. I met you almost 30 years ago, the man said. I was in high school, and I wanted to drop out. My parents asked you to talk to me one day because they thought I might listen to a ball player. They were right. I'm a lawyer now. I just wanted to tell you things. And Torre was pleased, but he was a little bit stunned. He said, I had a little tiny vague memory when he brought it up, but that was it. And before he could take the last steps to the player's entrance, another man stopped him, this man younger. And he said this, 20 years ago I had cancer. They thought I was terminal. You were with the Mets. You came to see me and gave me a pep talk. I never forgot it. And when you were sick, I realized I never said thank you. And again, Torre was rendered almost speechless. And later, Joe Torre said, it makes you realize what all of us in sports can do if we put just a little effort into things. And I mean just a little. A word here, a pat on the back there, a phone call. Right or wrong, because of who we are and what we do, it can have a tremendous effect on people. It's something I wish we could all be a little more aware of. Now, you may not be famous, but it is just as true of you. As a Christ follower, put a little effort into things. It can have a tremendous effect on people. There are numerous stories of the giants of the faith, how they came to faith. And oftentimes you'll recognize the name of, the great person of faith, but you've never heard of the person who actually shared a word with them that prompted them to trust Jesus in the first place. Consider Dwight L. Moody. Now, if you don't know who this is, you might recognize the name Moody Bible Institute, which was named for him. He was an evangelist big time in America in the late 1800s, the last half of that 19th century. His story, his background story is that he was one of 9 children. He was number 7, and tragically, his father died when Moody was just 4 years old. And then his mother delivered twins a month after his father died. Well, you can understand, she really struggled to take care of 9 kids, so they had to go to work, the ones that could. And Moody, failing to find a job where they lived, he moved to Boston at age 17 to work in his uncle's shoe store. Well, the uncle, just one of the requirements, said, Dwight, you've got to go to church. You've got to go to my family's church. And so he did. And apparently Sunday school was part of the bargain here. You've got to be in a class. Class teacher was a man named Edward Kimball. And he would later say this of Moody: I can truly say, and in saying it, I magnify the infinite grace of God as bestowed upon him, that I have seen few persons whose minds were spiritually darker than was his when he came into my Sunday school class. Not a person of great potential in the eyes of his Sunday school teacher. But in April of 1855, that Sunday school teacher, Edward Kimball, put in a little extra effort. He stopped by the shoe store where Moody worked to talk with him about how much God loved him. Moody put his faith in Christ, and this sparked the start of his career as an evangelist. And I cannot imagine how many people came to faith over those decades through the preaching and teaching of Dwight L. Moody. A visit by a Sunday school teacher who cared about the young man. I mean, today you can see a plaque, there's a picture of it there, that's mounted at the site, at that place where a shoe store was that Moody, well, commemorates the moment that led to his coming to faith in Christ. You know, I was thinking, every day I get up and I go to work, and I do pastorally things. And you know, I wonder sometimes, what difference does this make? And you know, oftentimes I don't get to see the difference that it makes. A wise friend of mine, this is from a friend from before I became a pastor, he was in the habit of saying, he says, look, when you plant carrots, you don't dig them up every day to see how they're doing. Of course not. Of course not. Who knows but that my faithfulness or your faithfulness, who knows but what that will yield in the future? Who knows what young person will do great things because you showed up? Or who knows what chronologically gifted person, that means old, all right? Who knows what chronologically gifted person will do great things? Maybe become a gainfully unemployed servant in the kingdom. Influence their peers and those younger than them to serve Christ. Our culture encourages people to strive for greatness as the culture measures it. You know, material possessions, power, fame, even just to be comfortable. You know, these are the markers of success that we're all supposed to strive for, yada, yada, yada.